Hello people, I'm Ginny Metherell. I'm a 4th generation witch and I have practiced witchcraft all my life. Today's video is part of my ever popular almanac series, woohoo! And today we're looking at the month of May. Now I might be prejudiced, but May and June in the UK cannot be beaten anywhere else in the world. It is the most beautiful, wonderful time of year and I love it. So today's video is my almanac video of witchcraft for the month of May. As usual with these videos, what I like to do is to give you sort of an overview of the magic that's happening within the month, because months change their sort of magical practices as you work through the year. And then we'll go into the daily dates for your diary and the witchcraft that you can do on each of them. Now May is a month when the hawthorn bush, which lines every roadside, hedgerow, field and hill in the UK, blossoms and blooms into all its frothy, white, abundant beauty. And so really, May is a month of the hawthorn, and this has been practiced in witchcraft throughout history. So I'm going to go a little into the traditions and associations with the hawthorn bush so that we can look at it in the context of May witchcraft. The hawthorn has always been sacred. The Druids held it as one of their sacred trees. Most trees are sacred to Druids, to be fair. They were quite tree hugging, I think, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm a tree hugger myself. You might have seen videos of me doing so. However, the hawthorn had a long association with the Druidic faith. They used to say that the best wand should be made from that of the wood of the hawthorn because it encompasses so many different qualities in it. It is protective, it is fertility based, it is magical, it is casting out of evil spirits, it's grounding, it's earth magic, it's ruled by Saturn. There's so many different correspondences that you can have with the hawthorn bush. And the Christian faith got in the act with the famous hawthorn bush at Glastonbury, both on the tour and in their church, which they said Joseph of Arimathea, when he first came to the UK, dabbed his staff in the ground and from it sprang the hawthorn bush, which flowered each year at Christmas. Now, this hawthorn bush does actually flower at Christmas, but that's because it's a biannual flowering hawthorn. It's a subspecies of the normal hawthorn. So, is this true? Maybe not, but it does show that the hawthorn was held in huge repute by our ancient ancestors. The country children know hawthorn as the bread and cheese bush because you can eat the young leaves and the young blossom buds as a tasty snack. Although, quite frankly, it's not that tasty. It just tastes a bit like a leaf. But you can eat them and they're okay if you like leaves that taste okay. Hey, the hawthorn flowers and their leaves were considered a panacea for all sorts of illnesses, in fact all of them as far as I can work out. However, they are particularly well used for insomnia, and a cup of hawthorn blossom tea nightly before you go to bed will help this. It also has a great impact on women of a certain age as they go into the crone stage. I'm not quite there yet. I'm looking forward to becoming a crone. It sounds fun. Go around with my pointy hat. Hawthorn blossom was used mightily throughout May. Any wedding that took place in May would have some hawthorn blossom in the bride's bouquet. It brought fertility, protection and grounded sensibilities to your marriage, which is of course very important. We all want to be fertile in our marriages, we all want to be protected and we all want to be sensible. The hawthorn blossom covered all bases. Maypoles, that wonderful phallic emblem of fertility, were always decorated with a blossom or a sprig of hawthorn on the top, just above where the ribbons come, because of course the maypole is the male phallic symbol going into the womb of the earth, and the hawthorn blossom is another symbol of fertility which is added to it. The young couples who went a-maying, which means that they go out on Beltane Eve and spend the night outside making love in the woods and the fields around them, in the morning would bathe their faces in the dew caught by the hawthorn blooms, and this, on the May morning, would give them grace and beauty throughout the year. And in fact, anybody could go and do this. Anyone can go out, as the young country girls and folk used to do. They would rise just before dawn, go out and bathe their faces with the dew of the hawthorn, collect the hawthorn blossoms, and then decorating themselves with wreaths and garlands, they would perform their May Day rites, which was normally dancing to the sun coming up. The Maying couple, who had spent the night having a really good time, would also collect great baskets of blossom of the hawthorn to bring home as a May basket to their friends and loved ones, and this was all in honour of the gods, whatever gods they happened to worship. There's no real association between hawthorn and a particular god or goddess. It was just known that it was there to celebrate the May. Part of the hawthorn's great protective qualities is that the blossom was picked and used to line a baby's cradle, and this would ensure that that baby would suffer no evil spells. Think about Sleeping Beauty as she lay in her cradle. If only she'd had some hawthorn, then the wicked fairy godmother could not have cast her spells. The hawthorn is also beloved by the fae, and in groves where you find hawthorn, oak and ash growing together, this is where you may see fairies dancing. So that is a sort of overview of the hawthorn for you. It is as quintessentially the blossom of May, and no real May rite should be completed without some hawthorn. Fairy revels were said to happen on Beltane Eve, but I have studied this over the last couple of years, and the fairy revels that I've seen in my neck of the woods, and they happen in different times and different places, fairy revels happened this year on the 24th of April, and last year it happened on the 4th of April. So perhaps fairy revels are actually governed more by phases of the moon as opposed to a human calendar construct. Who knows? It's something I would like to look into actually. So anyway, if you would like to know more about fairy revels, do leave me a message and a comment below, and any questions that you've got, so I know what to answer if I make a video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So fairies were considered their most mischievous at May, and cattle, sheep, milk and butter were closely guarded by the householders. I'm not quite sure why they were so after milk and butter, but the simplest cure to prevent the fairies stealing your cattle, your sheep, your milk and your butter was to lay a garland of primroses over the heads and horns of your cattle, to tie them to the tails of your sheep, and to sprinkle primroses across your threshold. For the fae apparently cannot cross a line of primroses. However, in order to prevent the fair folk stealing all your butter and your milk and your dairy products, the good householder would leave an offering of milk, bread and butter for the fae outside their doorsteps, not the whole way through May, but often, and especially on May Eve, because you never know, or whenever they felt that the fair folk would be about. Now on the night of Beltane, should you hear the pipes of fairy music playing, it's really important that you dance to it with great abandon and as brilliantly as you can, for this will mean that you will receive the grace of movement and beauty in the coming year. There is an old Irish saying that comes from this, which is, "She has danced to fairy music out on the hill," meaning May is the month when the fae would like to snatch a youthful beauty, be they male or female. The girls were taken home to be their brides, where the boys were sort of used as studs, I believe, as the tale goes. The fairy would take these beautiful young girls to the land of the fae, where they would marry them to their princes, and these women would live for 7 years. Of course, after 7 years, they've lost their youth and possibly a tiny bit of their beauty, and the fae are like, "See ya!" and they'd return them home. However, in thanks for their 7 years of joyous wedded bliss to their prince, they used to give these girls the knowledge of herbology, how it cures all ailments and what witchcraft you can make with it. And so this is where a true cunning woman of old got her knowledge. However, there was a catch to this. They couldn't sell their lotions and potions and herbology knowledge to anybody. They had to give it out for free. They had to give the knowledge out for free to whoever asked them. If they didn't give it away for free, that knowledge would be removed. So that is my overview for the month of May. Don't become fairy struck, and certainly don't forget your hawthorn blossom. And for those of you who live in an area where there isn't any hawthorn blossom, there will be one predominant flower, and that is what you should use instead. The 1st of May is May Day, or Beltane. Beltane actually starts on sunset on April the 30th and finishes at sunset on the May Day. Now, I've already done a video about Beltane, and I'll put the video up here for you so you can watch it and see what you think, because I don't want to repeat myself in this video. However, I didn't give you one piece of information in the Beltane video because I wanted it to be a joyous, exciting video, and that is that Beltane is a well-known fire festival. Fire festivals all have an association with the god of Baal. Baal was the god of the underworld, and he led the Gael people from the other world across the sea and into Ireland, so the legend goes. And in his honour, at a fire festival, humans would be sacrificed. Now this is pretty horrific, I think, actually. Apparently, they would either offer themselves up, can you imagine that? To be going, pick me! Pretty harsh. Or a hard cake, like those disgusting oat cakes that people eat. Ugh. Hard cake would be baked. One of those pieces would be charred underneath. So if you picked a piece of the cake which had the charring on the bottom, and then you were destined for the fires of Baal. Take care on this night of Beltane. It is not all to the good. Beltane itself is a funny word, actually. It comes possibly from the Gaelic bello tenia, meaning bright fire. And it is a wonderful time to have a bonfire. But do watch my Beltane video, because that will tell you how. Throughout the month of May, the Moon and Saturn begin their ritual dance around each other, coming in close and moving away and coming back again. And this happens twice in May, which is, not unusual, but fairly so. The first time that the Moon gets really close to Saturn is on the 4th of May. This closeness to Saturn means that Saturn has an influence over the Moon, which has an influence again over the world. Saturn is a grounding, earth element force, as much as hawthorn is. And it's also to do with physical, practical issues. For example, fertility, which is May, is it not? You can't get much more practical than are you having a baby or not. So when the Moon approaches Saturn on the 4th of May, this is the perfect time to celebrate an earth element. And I will put my earth element spells up here for you to take some ideas from if you haven't got any. This also ties in very nicely with the new moon, which happens on the 11th of May. Now the new moon is at apogee, which means that it is as furthest away from the Earth as it's ever going to be this year. So when the new moon, which you essentially can't see, rises on the 11th, it means that any spells that you start on that day and have consecutive daily spell making rituals will mean that you are drawing down the moon into that spell much more effectively, because the moon is physically coming closer to the Earth. The new moon is a brilliant time to start planning practical earth grounding decisions in your life. Should this be moving school, starting a family? Fertility is very good at this time of year, so if you're considering have a baby in May, go and try and have a baby in May. Why not? It is a great time to put forward those eminently practical and well thought out plans that will affect your physical everyday comfort for the next coming months. The new moon is also in the earth sign Taurus. This is a wonderful, grounding, responsible, steadfast, straightforward earth sign. So go for those practical spells, because you will succeed. The 13th is the Christian festival of the Ascension. This is when the Christians believe that Christ was taken up into heaven by God. However, I know there is no witchcraft associated with Ascension Day, but the Ascension Day traditions in this country are so pagan that I am utterly convinced they must have been taken from some pagan association which happened in May. So many villages in this country have this May ritual where they decorate the wells in their village. This is no better shown than in the village of Tissington. They use flower petals and they put them on to boards lined with clay and press the petals into it to make these amazing collages depicting religious scenery or sometimes just scenery. The people, if they have made a day of it as well, would take a picnic and go to the highest hill with their picnic and fly kites. Oh dear. Don't want to bring down my ceiling, and fly kites up into the air, and then they come down and they bathe ritually their feet and their faces and their hands in the water from the well, and they would use the well water, take it away in bottles for the purposes of healing. It's a lovely, lovely tradition that, but I cannot think that there's anything Christian about it. I like the going up to the top of the hill and flying your kite. That's quite a pagan thing to do as well, flying kites. So. But I wanted to mention it, so maybe if you've got a village well, so a posy of flowers placed around the well would be just as good. And our final date for the month of May is on the 26th of May. Now this is a great time to make moon water, and I'll put my moon water video up here for you if you don't know how to do that. Moon water on this full moon will bring down all the mother's blessing that you could possibly hope for, because the May moon is known as Mother's Moon. Moon water made on this day is particularly good for bathing children, anointing cradles, rubbing your tummy if you're pregnant, and using in general fertility spells. It is a lovely tradition to make moon water on this day. Add some hawthorn blossoms to the moon water and you will have a potent spell for fertility and protection. My May coven is coming up on I think it's the 8th or 9th of May, I can't quite remember. Do go to patreon.com/Ginny Metherell to have a look. I also do one-to-one sessions there, or if you can't do that, there is the Witchling support group. I would love to see you there, because we do all need a little extra help just to keep this channel going. Because quite frankly, YouTube take 30%. Did you know that? 30%. However, hope you enjoyed this video. Do give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, and watch out for later in the week my video on the May wine.